Welcome to the Low Carb Athlete Podcast, where we focus on discussing topics to help you burn fat, optimize health, and improve performance in life and sports. Transform the whole you from the inside out with the holistic method. Let's dive in. Here's your host, Debbie Potts.
Hello, my favorite low-carb aging athletes. I just wanted to share with you a special coupon code that I have from one of my favorite supplements, BioOptimizers. BioOptimizers has some great products that I often recommend to my health coaching clients based on their nutritional therapy analysis and their functional labs and food log symptoms that we look at. And a few of those are from BioOptimizers called HCl Breakthrough, Gluten Guardian, Magnesium Breakthrough, Capex, and their Masszymes enzymes, which is the strongest enzyme formula ever. And it has 5 different kinds of protease. Often we don't digest our food properly. So we are what we eat, but we also are what we can properly break down and absorb. So learn more from BioOptimizers. Check out their website and use our code LowCarbAthlete next time you go to purchase something. Enjoy.
Hey, it's Debbie, and I am, as you probably know already, on a mission to get faster, get stronger, get more powerful as I age, and defeat this stereotype of what happens when we get older, that we get slow and sluggish and lose our speed, and we get mushy, we lose our muscle tone. And then women, we have to deal with this menopause crap and all that. I think we can biohack our way through our aging process and say, screw that. I'm not having that happen to me. I am going to embrace the aging process instead of blame it and use it. Oh, I'm getting older as an excuse. That is one of my biggest pet peeves when people say, oh, I can't do something because I'm getting older, or I this because I'm getting older. Yes, we change as we get older. But we need to not blame the aging process, but change how we train, change how we fuel, change what you do each day, mix it up, and listen to the research that Huberman Labs talks about, what Dr. Gabrielle Lyon says, what Dr. Stacy Sims is talking about for the female endurance athlete. We, men and women, need to change how we train. Maybe add a little more recovery, active recovery days. Don't go hard day after day. Work on when you can do fasted exercise. If you ate 12 to 15 hours before, not doing this extended fasting when you are exercising. And then women need to fuel differently than men do. So hopefully, I've been talking about this for over a year now. So I've been trying to bring on guests that I come across that will be good experts to share the science behind this, as well as I want you to use your intuition. How do you feel? Not just looking at what your Oura Whoop Ring score or your Garmin says on Training Peaks, but we need to also go, okay, I really feel lousy today. I'm just going to go for a walk and I'm going to reschedule that workout. Or if your temperature goes up and your heart rate variability goes in the garbage and your sleep score sucks and you just push through it, don't do it. Remember, I'm on my 10-year anniversary of when my life changed, 2013. This month, as I record February, I was in Torrey Pines at my Todd Durkin Mastermind Retreat doing my strict keto diet, fasted exercise, not eating anything unless it was fat and wouldn't alter my glucose and insulin levels. And I wasn't eating enough. I was picky because this is 10 years ago, and I was training for my next Ironman race. And we were at a retreat, and I went for my speed run, not really eating anything but, some butter coffee probably and collagen in there. And then, well, I said this on a recent podcast, so I won't go into it, but I just had some alcohol that night and everything has been changed since. So my body from doing everything too much low carb, not enough protein. Probably back then I wasn't paying attention to protein as we're doing now. I was doing all my workouts per schedule, but I was doing that on top of doing a lot of other things. And then I had chronic stress from owning a fitness studio that my rent got up to $7,000 a month that I had to pay. So I never got paid. I was trying to have to market, get new clients in the door, and make sure my trainers had enough clients in their classes and personal training clients, and always reinventing myself in our studio and being innovative, adding, burn fat classes and biohacking. What do we do? Health fairs, and I did self-care health fair, and I had sauna, and I did all this stuff, acupuncture, nutritional therapy, and I did body fat testing, metabolic efficiency testing, all of this 2010, 2019, when I finally closed my doors of Fitness Forward Studio in Bellevue, Washington. But it was a chronic stress issue for me. So I started my adrenal exhaustion in 2013 when I went from top in my age group racing and doing my best times in all my races in 2012. And then 2013, I just fell apart and have never been the same since. So I'm on a mission this year, 2023, to share my journey, share my history, share what my why is, what my drive, my passion, my purpose, what my mission is this year, to help you, the person that's like me. My avatar client is me. Someone that's high charging athlete. You're trying to do all the right things. You're listening to the fasting. You're listening to low carb. You're listening to keto. You're listening to carnivore. But we're not individualizing it and really looking at all these red flags through the holistic method lifestyle habits. We talk about the nutrition and exercise, but what about your stress management? What are you doing to start your day? How are you ending your day to optimize your sleep when you recover and repair? What are you doing to move throughout the day? Even if you just did this hard training session, have you sat on your rear end the whole rest of the day? Are you taking those movement snack breaks and running up a set of stairs and doing 20-second burst training? Are you doing yoga and meditation or hot cold baths or whatever these different lifestyle so-called biohacks are in your schedule? What are you doing to take care of the whole you from the inside out, including gratitude and happiness and joy and laughter in your life? I found that I was so intense and so competitive. And if you're in my age group, you were probably thinking I wasn't very friendly. I wanted to beat you. So I am a much more laid back, much more happier now. And I thought I was happy then, but I also thought I was superhuman. I thought I was invincible. I was doing my best in my sportive triathlons and marathons and cycling events that I thought I was having many more years ahead of me. I actually skipped some Ironman Hawaii's because I was sick of it. And I skipped some Boston marathons. I'm like, I just did that last year. I'm tired of that. So take care of you now. Don't wait until you're completely broken. That is my goal. So anyways, I'm rambling again as I do when I record these intros. But today's guest is someone who I came across on my social media. I've heard of him many times over the years and reached out, and he ends up living the next exit from me in North San Diego, Rancho Bernardo. I'm over kind of Escondido, inland from Rancho Santa Fe, Solana Beach, Del Mar, and Encinitas, that area in North County. If you're ever up, give me a ring. But I really am excited to talk about this topic today because I'm on a mission to get stronger, as I said, and faster. And I feel that we as endurance athletes don't always train the right way, especially as you're aging. If you listen to research on aging, we need more low zone 2. Everyone talks about, we used to call it MAF training, max aerobic function heart rate, lower heart rate, that's easy, comfortable, I can stay there forever pace. And then we want to do HIIT training. And then Stacy Sims talks about SIT, short intense training intervals that you're doing 30-second or less, all out, butt kick, sprints. So we've got these different events or different types of workouts to do. But what if your training for your event is a marathon? How should you train for this event differently than we used to. Well, Dr. Jason Karp has this interesting new book out called The Endurance of Speed. And he says oftentimes runners performance plateaus, they plateau not because of what they do, but because of what they don't do. And one of the things that many runners don't do when they start running as adults is that they don't work on their basic speed. They never become fast runners. And that really interested me because I know I was training people all the time, and we always did the 80-20, 80% you're doing the low heart rate, the Maffetone type of training. But as clients were older, I just noticed as we aged, people weren't getting faster unless they came to Wednesday night track workouts. Those people that pushed themselves, did speed work, did the 400, 800s, did the Yasso 800s, they got faster. But the people that were always running one speed, guess what happens? That's what you know. You don't know what you don't know, right? So if you're just running that speed, how do you get faster? Well, Dr. Jason Karp is flipping the thought on how we train for endurance events. Instead of starting with this big, huge base, what if we started with doing 100-meter sprints, do short sprint workout, and then work on the base? So he has a new book out you can find on Amazon to dive into it deeper. Because as you'll know, we listen to the podcast as you listen today. One, the background noise was not good. I should have re-recorded this interview because it's pretty noisy on the background side. But try to listen to him, what he says. I would order his book because mostly every answer to my questions was, it depends, which is true, right? This is not a one size fits all. How should you eat? How should you train? How do you need to recover? How do you need to wake up every day? Is though unique to you. There is not one size fits all. There's a template. There's a starting point, and there's places where we adjust and course correct based on how you feel and how you respond to those different types of hormetic stressors. But you are unique. So we want to look at the Endurance for Speed. It's a new method of marathon, half marathon training that you can discover more in his book, the answers to these questions, because we didn't really get all the answers out, because obviously you should read the book. But you'll learn a little bit on how to train for speed first, and then how to improve your endurance of speed to reach and exceed your marathon or half marathon goals. So if you're new to endurance racing, or if you kind of feel like you're stuck, think about this. Maybe you're not doing enough speed work. I myself obviously I've done endurance work since, my gosh, I'm getting old. I was 25 years old. I started racing, and then I started doing marathons when I was 29. Let's see. I started doing Ironmans when I was my 29 years old, 2001. So, gosh, so I've been doing this for 20 plus years. So my body is used to just going Forrest Gump. I can go forever. And I can go for a 4-hour bike ride, even if I haven't gone for a month out for a long bike ride. I'm just used to it. My body knows what to do. But have me go fast, go all out speed, well, it's pretty much my area of opportunity that I'm working on. So I'm joined San Diego Track Club, and I'm trying to go Tuesday nights, but I hate going at 6:15 at night. I'd rather do 6:15 a.m. Speed workout at nighttime is horrible for my sleep, but it's fun, and there's like 100 people. It's a really great way to meet people that are similar to you, so you meet new friends. And then there's hill repeats. I've been going to Torrey Pines. After I go do some mobility, some strength work at the Bay Club, I can drive a few miles down the road to Carmel Valley Bay Club, strategically parked in front of Bird Rock Coffee right there, if you're ever there. So good for afterwards. And then do my hill repeats up Torrey Pines. So if it's 30 seconds, come back down, or maybe there's some minute intervals. Instead of just doing these 10, 20-minute tempo pieces or 5-minute pieces or mile repeats, my body, me, Debbie Potts, needs short burst training. So 30 seconds, minute, 2 minutes, 3 minutes. That's what I need right now. But you are not me. So see what you need. Listen to the podcast. See what you think. And if you have questions, shoot them my way. I will put the link for the in the show notes his bio because it is very long. So I won't go into his bio, but he is pretty well trained in many areas. He's written many books, he's spoken at many seminars, and he's been around the industry a long time. So let's dive in to Dr. Jason Karp. Just I will add in, he's got so many books, 14 books, and this is his newest one, Endurance of Speed, but he is a USA track and field certified coach. He's shows how long he's been around. He's Power Bar and Brooks sponsored in the years, and he's awarded 2011 IDEA Personal Trainer of the Year. And that's my fitness conference I go to every year. But he's received a PhD in exercise physiology with the physiology minor from Indiana University, and his MBA entrepreneurship from San Diego State University, right by us, and his master's degree in kinesiology from University of Calgary. So he's been around us, different locations for sure. And his bachelor's degree in exercise and sports science with an English minor from Penn State University. So man, he's lived a lot of different places. He's been published in several scientific journals and serves as a journal expert peer reviewer. But so he knows what he's talking about. So let's bring him on and let me know what you think. All right, guys, I found another amazing person to be on the show to help us figure out how to field train and perform our best as athletes, endurance athletes specifically. And I personally am always looking for tricks to improve the aging process so I can get my running speed back and perform my best in my later years of life, my second half of life. So Dr. Jason Karp is on the show, and you are just the next exit from me, and we're recording here on Zoom, but welcome to the Low Carb Athlete Podcast.
Thanks for having me.
So you are just, I've heard of you for years. You've written gazillion books, you've articles, you've been around IDEA convention and awards and races. And now we want to talk about the endurance of speed. I think training for marathons is a good time of year. This is February. A lot of people are training for a marathon. I know I've been involved with helping people at the San Diego Track Club doing San Diego Rock and Roll Marathon coming up, but people around the world are always training for half and full marathons. And as we're aging, what are some secret tips have you found to improve our speed and how to do our best? We're 40 something, 50, 60. What's different than when we're 20, 30-year-olds you just got and trained?
Yeah, well, the reason I got the idea for the book was because I worked with a lot of marathon runners over the years, and I've noticed that a lot of people, when they become runners as adults, a lot of people go straight to the marathon. They're enamored with the marathon and the endurance of it, but they neglect their speed. They never do true speed work, and then they wonder why their marathon can't get better. You can get faster for a marathon for a while just on the aerobic work. Like if you're a 4-hour marathon, you can go from 4 hours to 3.5 hours just by doing more running. But when you really want to get much faster and meet your potential in the marathon, it all starts from a basis of speed. Like if you ever notice at the elite world-class level, most marathon runners were very, very good track and field runners before they moved up to the marathon. They spent a good portion of their career racing on the track, and then in the latter portion of their career, they move up to the marathon. Nobody's going the other way. No one's starting at the marathon and moving down to the track because speed is difficult to maintain over the course of one's life, but endurance is very maintainable. And so one trick, if you will, to become a better marathon runner is to first start from a basis of speed and work on your pure speed, and then work on the endurance of that speed to try to hold as high a fraction of that speed as possible, instead of just taking the aerobic perspective all the time and logging all the miles and the long runs, which is important. But if you only do that, then you're going to limit how fast you can run a marathon, because regardless of the race, you're always running at some percentage of your maximum speed. And so if your maximum speed is faster, then your whole marathon can get faster because you can work on maintaining a higher fraction of what becomes faster speed. And so that's what kind of gave me the idea for the book, to turn the traditional method of training around.
Mm-hmm.
And instead of doing the aerobic work first and then doing some speed later, well, later is too late. To work on the speed first, become a fast runner first, and then work on being able to maintain a high fraction of that speed for as long as possible, and do the more marathon specific work later when it gets closer to the marathon.
Okay, so are you starting, say tonight I was supposed to go San Diego Track Club, for example, and there's 100-something people there, and they're doing 400 meters the other week when I was there, and there's different levels. There's definitely a beginner group that they're doing just 100s instead of modifying it. So would you have a requirement before you start doing speed work, start with being able to run a mile or 3 miles, or how would you just start just doing sprints?
Yeah, I mean, real speed work is speed. It's not mile repeats. It's nothing like that. It's running really fast. For anything from pure speed, which is 5 to 10 second sprints at a time, to speed endurance, which may be 200 or 300 or 400 meter reps. And so that's stuff that you don't need to have something to precede that. For runners who ran when they were in high school, a lot of it is fast. A lot of it is speed work initially early in the athlete's career. And so, but there's no reason why you can't do that as an adult too. People get a little afraid of running fast, but that's the basis of all running. It's fast running first and then endurance later. So you can do workouts in the first phase of your training where you're just doing 100-meter sprints and do 5 to 10 of them in a workout, and that's the entire workout. You warm up, you do sprints, and then you do your cool down, and that's the whole workout. And you do that over the course of several weeks to months. You work on the pure speed and the speed endurance, which is the longer sprints, or something like 300 meters or 400 meters. And then after you do that, a phase of that, then you can move on to the 2 max intervals, which are more like 800-meter reps, which are more aerobic in nature. And then from there, you move to the quality aerobic work, the threshold, train the tempo runs, as you also increase the amount of weekly mileage that you're doing. So it basically turns the traditional model of training around and does the pure speed work first, and then does the endurance work later.
So we trained for years. We did kind of the Mapatone, max aerobic function heart rate, build your base, train 180 miles your age, stay there until you're not getting faster anymore, and then do the monthly 3-mile test at your MAF heart rate. And then that's when you should add speed work. So you're kind of reversing it and saying, okay, start with kind of almost what Tabata, we did the 20 seconds all out, 10 seconds rest, or equal that to running, doing 5-10 seconds up to 100-meter sprints. That you are doing that first, and then phase 2, you're adding that a next layer in.
Yeah. So the whole reason for that again is because many adults they totally neglect that. I mean, most adults, when you become an adult and you start running and you go right to the marathon, they completely neglect their pure speed, and that's why they do that first, to get that out of the way first. I mean, if you look at runners who have been running their whole lives, then they don't necessarily have to do that because they have a background of speed. If you're running in middle school or high school, there's a lot of speed work done all the time. And that's why for those kinds of runners, they may not need to do that. So this method isn't for everybody. It's just for those who have no background of speed at all, and so they've never touched a fast twitch fiber in their lives. You have to touch the fast twitch fibers. So for those kinds of runners, it's very beneficial to get fast first and work on endurance later.
So it's, start with some speed work. And how long do you think people should do that phase? Is that a month long or 6 weeks, 4 to 6 week transition, then start?
It depends. I mean, in the book, I give it a whole long training program. The whole thing is like 38 weeks long, and it's broken into 2 halves. And the first half is working on the speed. So a lot of it depends on different factors. One factor being how quickly you adapt to that kind of work versus the aerobic kind of work. Another factor is how much it's been neglected in the past. I mean, if you've never done any speed work before in your life, then you need to spend a decent amount of time on it to become a fast runner. Not even think about the marathon. Just become a fast runner first, and then focus on marathon training.
It makes sense to me because I know I've watched people, and I used to coach groups of people before I moved down here in Seattle, and I feel like we would just do the long, slow distance all the time. And I found this even myself as I stopped racing, that you just get slower. As you age, you just get slower, not faster. But I could go long, but I'm lacking that speed and power as I get older. And I used to do 3:12 Boston Marathon and a 1:35 half marathons were my best time ranges. And now I find, it's more important to do speed work and shorter workouts rather than what we used to do. And I see so many people do is just go out and do hour run every day and not really have a purpose or a point to the why. They're just, I need an hour, I need this much volume.
Right. Yeah, we definitely lose speed as we get older. And so the speed work, the power training, that becomes even more important as we age. Because the vascular fibers atrophy, you lose that ability to run fast when you age.
Yeah, and that's a big thing as we, hit 40, I turned 50, and now it's like, all right, as I said before, not blame the aging process, but embrace it and train differently at 50 than I would when I was 20, 30 years old.
Right, exactly. Yeah, you can do more speed work. You have to just give yourself enough time to recover in between the faster workouts.
Yes.
But it's very important to do that speed work. And even, heavy strength training, anything that's going to improve power and strength, because we lose that as we age.
So that's a big thing, is how much is too much, because you tell that to people and they are type A driven. They're like, oh, I'm just going to do speed work every day. Not, do you do one speed work, 2 easy days, or how do you write? I mean, everyone needs to read your book. And suggestion.
Right. So, it's all, whether you're 25 years old or 65 years old, the training principles are the same, that you have to apply a certain amount of stress, and then you let your body recover from that stress before applying a greater stress. And so that's somewhat of an individualistic matter. You have to experiment a little bit to know how often you can do faster workouts. Maybe you start with just one of them a week, and then you adapt to that and you habituate to that stress, and then you can put in the second one per week. So, that's again about how you plan the training and what you start off with. Some people can handle more than others. And so you just have to know your body. You got to listen to your body. You start with a little bit of stress, and then over time you increase how often that stress is applied, or how much of the stress in any given workout. There's many ways that you can manipulate the stress.
Now, do you like wearing heart rate monitors for people, or go by speed? How would you tell, am I going hard enough to make it effective?
That depends on the type of workout. So for the pure speed work, there's no reason to have a heart rate monitor, because you're going to be running at a intensity that is much faster than what your max heart rate would be anyway. But because the distance that you're sprinting is so short, you may not even reach your max heart rate, even though the intensity is much higher. So leave your heart rate monitor at home for the speed work. The heart rate's really only important for the easy days, and it's important for specific kinds of workouts like tempo runs or VO2 max intervals, anything that is based on aerobic work in which you're training the cardiovascular system. So for the speed work, it's not important, because the speed work is not about the cardiovascular system. It's about what's happening inside the muscles. Whereas the longer intervals or the tempo runs and the easy mileage, that's more about the cardiovascular system and the ability of the muscles to use the oxygen being delivered to it.
Okay. And then do you like to add in nutrition beforehand? It's a big thing. Do you eat before a workout, or you're being more anaerobic? Does it, if you want to improve performance, do you fuel up, or do you fasted workouts? What do you think on that part?
Again, that depends on what the workout is and what the purpose of the workout is. Nutrition really is more important for the longer workouts, the longer runs, the longer tempo runs. For the speed work, I mean, you could, if it makes you feel better, you could eat a couple hours before, but that's not where you're getting the fuel to do the workout. It's the fuel that's already inside, stored inside the muscle. For the really short sprints,
Yeah.
you're using creatine phosphate. For the longer sprints, you're using a combination of the creatine phosphate and the blood glucose. And so that could be done first thing in the morning before breakfast, because first of all, it's not going to feel good if you run right after you eat. And secondly, you're using what's already stored in the muscle, which isn't going to be affected by what you eat 30 minutes before.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's what, I was telling you, the Huberman lab had Dr. Andy, what's his last name? Gappin, and on the Huberman Lab podcast, talking about the benefits of doing these movement snacks even throughout the day, doing 20 seconds, run up the stairs and just get more short bursts. And Dr. Stacy Sims talks about the SIT, short intensity interval training, more important for specifically, she focuses on the research for female athletes, but just how important it is to getting these all out short bursts in on a track or for runners, but any time just for general health and proper aging, we just need to add in those little snack breaks during the day. Seems like it's a hot topic research, because I think so many people get stuck in just what we've learned, just as endurance athletes, we need to build our aerobic base and be more of a fat burner, increase our speed at a higher heart rate, that I'm still burning highest amount of fat at my set heart rate.
Yeah,
So,
I mean, there's several ways to do it. And again, it depends on what the athlete's strengths are. It depends on what the athlete's background is. But, any given race, like if you want to know in a group of marathon runners who's going to run the fastest marathon, they only need to race over a couple hundred meters. If you haven't run 200 meters, and who's ever fastest over 200 meters in a group of marathon runners is also likely fastest over the marathon, because you're always running at a fraction of your speed. Like if you want to run a sub 3 hour marathon, but you can only run a mile in 6:30, you're never going to be able to run a sub 3 hour marathon, because that's 6:52 pace. You can't hold 6:52 pace for an entire marathon if you can only run 1 mile in 6:30. So you have, at some point, you're going to have to become a faster runner if you want to keep improving even your marathon time.
Yeah. So when you're doing the longer runs, you do those once a week. When you add those in, do you find like a basic program? Again, people need to read the book and get a more personalized program.
I mean, again, it depends. I mean, what you do, any given workout by itself means nothing by itself. It's all in the context of the entire training program and what became before it, what comes after it. It's all about the plan that you have laid out and the direction of that plan and what that direction leads to, which is ultimately running the best time you've ever run in your life. Hopefully, that's what everybody wants. And so it's all about how to plan out the training and to follow the direction you want it to go. And that can be done in several different ways. There's not just one road to get there, but the road has to still make sense regardless of the road you choose. It can't just be a smattering of arbitrary workouts here and there. It has to be on a road that has a direction to it.
So do you have an average number of days that people should run? Because I know some people run 6 days a week and others, less is more philosophy and the minimal effective dose philosophy. What do you find kind of general principle?
Again, that depends on the person, their commitment to training, how long it takes them to recover in between long runs and harder workouts. But if you're focusing on the marathon, typically the more the better. And so, if you take a 6-month marathon training plan and one has the person running 6 days a week and the other has the person running 3 days a week, well, the person running 6 days a week is doing twice the amount of training within that 6-month period. So, if you're only going to run 3 days a week, that's fine. But then you better choose a longer than a 6-month marathon training plan, because 6 months of running 3 days a week is not really adequate if you're looking to run a solid marathon. If you're looking just to finish, then that's okay. But if you're looking to run faster than what you have before, then it's going to take longer than 6 months if you're running just 3 days a week compared to someone who's running 6 days a week who's doing double the amount of training.
What if you're biking 3 days a week and running 3 days a week? Does that cross over at all?
Yeah, it all helps, but there's the specificity of training that we
Yeah.
always have to remember. And so, there's a reason why the Kenyans are not the best cyclists. I mean, you'll still get an aerobic benefit from doing that other stuff, but you don't get the neuromuscular benefits. You have to do the movement. It's like saying, well, if I practice the piano to improve my trumpet playing, well, is it going to? It helps, it helps in terms of more music. You're practicing the art of playing music, but you're not practicing the specific instrument. And so it's the same thing with cross training. You're still getting an aerobic benefit, but you're not playing the specific instrument that you're going to use to race.
Yeah. So that reminds me too of recovery, because a lot of people get stuck in overtraining if they're not recovering enough for their body. And how do you measure if they're recovered or not? Do you have clients use as an Oura ring or heart rate variability testing, or just like because a lot of people don't know if they're tired because they're high performers or overachievers?
There are a few ways you could do it. I mean, the best way is to do lab work. I mean, there's lots of things you can measure in your blood to tell you if you're doing too much. But apart from the lab work, you can look at things like your resting heart rate. And if you are really in tune with how you feel, then you can rely on the feeling, and if you're doing too much. But like you said, a lot of people don't know if they're tired, and they think, oh, they should just push through it. So they have to look at other metrics. One is the quality of sleep. If you're always waking up in the middle of the night and you're restless, you're not getting good sleep, that's a sign that something's going on. And then resting heart rate will tell you a lot.
Yeah, I think I was testing and not guessing. What biomarkers do you like to look on a blood chemistry panel?
You can look at creatine kinase, which is an enzyme that only appears in the blood when there's muscle damage. And so if you can measure the level of creatine kinase in the blood, that tells you if there's a lot of muscle damage, and so that tells you if the person's not recovered from harder workouts. So creatine kinase is a good thing to measure. And then cortisol, of course, is a good hormone to measure. You can look at all the hormones. Testosterone is a good hormone to measure.
Yeah, that's the other question is chronic stress. So people that are running, the clients that I get are more people that are overdoing everything. And so we do the functional lab test investigation, but really looking at if you're training, say 6-7 days a week of something, exercise, running 6 days, maybe active recovery day, 1 day off, but they're doing their workouts on top of a stressful life and working full-time, family, relationships, financial, all those other stressors externally that they have to battle. So does there, find that here's the minimum we need to run to say we need 6 days a week running? Is 30 minutes okay rather than like 45 minutes is optimal? Or do you have kind of ranges where we get some benefits?
I mean, again, a lot of these questions, and the answer is it depends. And it depends
Yes.
on what the person's background is, what their goals are, how much they can handle, how much time they have to run. Because while somebody who's training to run a 2:30 marathon, maybe 30 minutes of running is not going to be enough for them. But someone who's trained to run a 4.5-hour marathon, 30 minutes may very well be enough for them to get the same stimulus. So it all depends on the level of stimulus and what they're trying to accomplish and how much time they have to do it so they can get the most at the least amount of work. I mean, that's where the whole high intensity aspect has come in, especially in the fitness industry, is trying to get the most out of the least amount of time. And that's why the high intensity training has become so popular, because in a 20-minute workout, you can get an amazing workout if it's high intensity. And so what my recommendation is that the less often that people run, then the more important each day of training becomes. And so that's why, like, if you're going to have a 3-day-a-week training plan, then each of those 3 days has to be of high quality. Because if they're a low intensity just for the 3 days, then it's going to take a very long time to get fit. It's going to take much longer than a 6-month training plan. But if those 3 days are of a higher quality, then it can be done in that 6-month time frame. So it all depends on how much running the person's doing and how you manipulate the volume versus the intensity.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And the other question is, you had a great post about how do you adapt to training and aerobic exercise and resistance training. How much is resistance training important in the program?
Well, again, that depends, but I've been a little bit outspoken about the effects of strength training on distance running performance, and over the years I've had to qualify what I've said so that people understand, because it's not that I'm against strength training, it's just that there's very little that specific strength training can do for someone that certain kinds of running can't do. Like the best type of strength training for a distance runner is probably running hills. Do short, fast hills to work on speed and power, and then do longer hills to work on the cardiovascular development. I mean, there's a reason why most VO2 max tests done in the lab incorporate a hill on the treadmill. Because when you run up a hill, you're engaging more muscle mass, you drive the heart rate up, and you consume more oxygen, so it can improve VO2 max. And so going into a gym and doing the traditional kinds of lifting, doing squats and lunges and that kind of stuff is not going to make someone hold a faster pace in a race that takes 3 hours or 4 hours. There's more specific running training that the person can do. They can increase their volume, they can increase their intensity, they can increase their volume of intensity, they can run hills, they can do the pure fast speed work. There's a lot of things that people can do that have more direct carryover or translation into being able to hold a faster pace for a marathon than going into the gym and doing the squats and the lunges and the burpees and all that kind of stuff.
So would you include doing foundational work in there, as doing planks and side planks and glute active muscle activation for your glutes and balance exercises, things like that to help?
Yeah, you can do that stuff by running too. You can do bounding trails up a hill.
Yeah.
You can do lunging. You can do like jumping lunges up a hill. So, and that's going to activate the glute. Whoever doesn't think that hill running works your glutes should go and sprint up a hill 10 times, and you're going to be sore the next day. So there's a lot that you can do with running, which is obviously much more specific to the act of running, because you're running doing these different kinds of things, than to do the stationary kinds of exercises that have no translation to the actual running. I mean, the big thing about running and strength training, like when you go into a gym and you're doing squats or deadlifts, your foot is in contact with the ground the entire time you're doing the lift. And so you're getting used to applying force to the ground the entire time. When you run, your foot is only in contact with the ground for a fraction of 1 second. When you're running easy, it may be about 3 or 4 tenths of a second. When you're running faster, it's about 2 tenths of a second. And so if you want to become a faster runner, you have to get used to applying force to the ground in a very short amount of time, because that's what you're going to do when you're running. You don't have the foot in contact with the ground for 5 or 10 seconds on each step. But that's the way it is when you're in a gym doing these exercises. So that's why it doesn't carry over, because you have to be able to produce a lot of force against the ground very quickly. And that's the definition of power. It's the rate of force development. That's what needs to be trained more than anything else.
That's why I did it this morning, Torrey Pines, my workout up there. That's a perfect pitch.
Torrey Pines is a great hill, yeah.
Yeah, I love doing intervals on there. It's my best spot. And that's where I do feel like, what do you think of downhill running to work on turnover speed? 'Cause that's what I always felt made a biggest bang for the buck, downhill.
Running, you got to be careful with that, because there's a lot of eccentric contractions and causes a lot of soreness. But if you can find, maybe something on grass that's not as hard on the legs, if you can find just a slight downhill slope and do sprints downhill, that's also very, very effective for improving speed. But just, you got to be careful doing it in only small doses, because it causes a lot of muscle damage, and you'll be sore for a couple of days afterward.
I'm laughing because I had flashbacks. One year I did ski to sea relay race in Bellingham, Washington, and I had the 8-mile downhill leg was my event I had to do. 8 miles from Mount Baker all the way down
So,
to the river for the kayaker. I've never, ever been that sore, and I've done 15 Ironmans and how many Boston marathons and all sort races, but nothing like 8 miles downhill. It was killer.
that is killer. Yeah, there's so much muscle damage. 8 miles is a long way to go
Oh, it
downhill.
was horrible.
Yeah. People think, oh,
Yeah.
it's easy, it's downhill, but
No.
yeah, your legs are going to be screaming at you.
Yeah, and then even, I used to do Boston Marathon for years, and we'd always laugh at the people going down the stairs at the restaurant the next day,
Yeah,
or that night, and just no one could walk. I guess it'd be the next day, just that post-marathon of Boston. Because then I learned how to train for Boston because it's uphill, downhill, and then I never had problems. But it is funny watching people. So the other question is not a big topic. My male athletes are sick of it, but how should men train differently than the female athlete?
it's a very good question, something I've been fascinated by for quite a long time, which led to the writing of Running for Women. And then one of my latest books, Running Periodization, including a whole chapter on menstrual cycle periodization. So the better way to phrase the question is not how men should train differently than women, but how should women train differently than men? And there's a whole art and science to that, and how women should schedule their training around their menstrual cycle. It's quite fascinating. I could speak for a whole hour on that, but the short of it is that estrogen is a runner-friendly hormone, and progesterone counteracts a lot of the effects of estrogen. And so at times of the month when estrogen is high, so estrogen is rising the entire first 2 weeks of the menstrual cycle and peaks right before day 15 on ovulation. And that's a good time to push the aerobic work, to increase the aerobic mileage, to do the long tempo runs. That's a great time to do the aerobic work. And then when the opposite, when progesterone is high, that's a good time to back off, either to maintain what you're doing or to back off a little bit on the training rather than to try to push the endurance work. Because progesterone does a few things that make, especially long endurance work, more difficult. It increases body temperature, it increases breathing, and so people can, women can perceive those workouts during that time of the month as to be harder because a lot of times we link how hard we're working to how hard we're breathing. And so because progesterone increases breathing and it increases body temperature, especially if it's hot and humid outside, it makes those efforts more difficult. But estrogen is a great time to really push the aerobic work because estrogen helps with endurance. It shifts metabolism toward a greater reliance on fat at the same pace. So we already know that women rely more on fat and less on carbohydrate when running at the same absolute pace and even relative pace compared to a man. And that seems to be a result of the increased estrogen. There's been a lot of research done on rats looking at this, and you can give male rats estrogen. This kind of research is interesting. It's a little bit unethical to do this on humans because where are you going to find men who want to be injected with estrogen? But we can do this kind of stuff on rodents and rats, and so that's what the research has found, that when you give male rats, they test them before they give them the estrogen and then after, and they find that there's a shift in metabolism toward a greater reliance on fat under the influence of estrogen. What we don't know is how that estrogen is changing metabolism to make the muscles rely more on fat, what the mechanism is behind that. We don't know that yet, but we do know that estrogen affects metabolism in such a way that you're relying more on fat and less on carbohydrate. And so you're conserving the limited store of carbohydrate because we have unlimited stores of fat, but we have a very limited store of carbohydrate. And so if you notice at the elite level, the difference in performance between men and women from the 100 meters up to the marathon is about 10%. So that shrinks to about 5% when you look at ultra marathons. And sometimes women are beating the men and even winning the race outright, even beating all of the men in ultra marathons. So there's much less of a difference in endurance performance the longer the race gets. And that has a lot to do with relying more on fat, because in these longer races, you want to rely more on fat as long as you can, because once you use up your limited stored carbohydrate, you're going to be in trouble. So that's why that's one of the reasons why women are really good at very, very long distance events, because of their greater reliance on fat.
Yep. No, I could go. Endurance sport was easy for me. I just could go and go. And then my husband doesn't like doing the long stuff. He's like, I'm good. I can go have coffee and go home.
Yeah, if you take a cross section of the population, most women are better the longer the race. I mean, of course, there are women. You look at the elite level, the professional level. There are female sprinters too who are phenomenal. You look at someone like Sydney McLaughlin, the 400-meter hurdles. She's phenomenal. But they're also self-selected because they're the outliers of society. Yeah. If you take the cross-section, you look at the entire population, most women fare better the longer the race because of the effects of estrogen.
Interesting. Yeah, we've talked a lot about that. I always find it fascinating. I created Training Peaks program for clients that I can apply to them based on day one of their cycle. So I can really dial it in, all this information. It's pretty cool. Okay, so running economy is a big thing, and I've been into metabolic testing, and then just reading today actually, or watching a seminar on how breathing can impact our performance as well. So anything on running economy, that how we can improve our ability to run, how we're, I think, postural too, and how people breathe, anything on that, we could throw in some few tips.
There's a few things. I mean, running economy, out of the three big physiological factors that influence performance, economy gets the least amount of attention. Most of the attention is on VO2 max and lactate threshold, but economy is probably the most important of the three because it represents how hard you're working at a given percentage of your maximum. And so the definition of running economy is how much oxygen you're using to maintain a given submaximal running speed. And so while VO2 max represents the maximum volume of oxygen, running economy is what the VO2 is, the volume of oxygen at something submaximal, whether it's 7-minute pace or 8-minute pace or 9-minute mile pace. And when you go out the door to run at any given pace, you're going to consume a specific amount of oxygen to maintain that pace. And the less oxygen that you use to maintain that pace, the more economical you are. And the faster you're going to be able to run at a given percentage of your max. So it's very, very important. The really good marathon runners tend to be extremely economical. And that's why they're able to run at such a high fraction of their maximum speed. And so there's a few different ways you can improve running economy. The most obvious one is run a lot. It's just like anything else. Like, if you want to practice playing the piano, at first when you start playing the piano, you're very uneconomical. You're thinking about where your fingers are supposed to go on the keyboard, and it takes a long time to remember that, I got to hit this key, then I got to hit that key. But then you practice over and over and over again, and after many months or years of practicing, you're not even thinking about where your fingers have to go. They just automatically go because it's a central nervous system recruitment of the muscles to make your fingers go there. And so it's the same thing with running, that when you first start running, you're very uneconomical, but it's very responsive to training because you're practicing that movement over and over and over and over again, hundreds of thousands of times. And so that's one way to improve economy, is just to do the physical act of moving the legs over and over and over again and practicing the skill of running. Another way, I posted something today actually talking about the Achilles tendon. The Achilles tendon, when it's used correctly, acts like a spring to propel you forward. And so the more that you can rely on the Achilles tendon to propel you forward with each step, the less work the muscles have to do. Because the more work the muscles have to do, the more oxygen it costs. And the more oxygen it costs, the worse the economy. So one way to improve economy is also to maximize the ability for the Achilles tendon to store and utilize elastic energy with each step. And that can be done several ways. That could be done with plyometric training. That could be done with hill running. That could be done with working on your posture so that you're landing in the correct posture to activate that Achilles tendon and have it work as much like a spring as possible. So there's several things that you can do to enhance the ability of the Achilles tendon to do its job, to take the work off the muscles, and that'll improve economy because that decreases the amount of oxygen that you need to advance yourself a given distance with each step.
Yeah, makes sense. So it sounds like we don't need to go to the gym. Our gym's outside. Go find some stairs, some hills, or a track, or ideally both because you need hills. And, just get out there. So a lot of people don't have hills where they live. So maybe they find stairs is a good stair repeats. Does that help?
Yeah, stairs can work very well. Treadmill, you can manipulate the hill of the treadmill, anything you want. Heavy strength training has actually also been shown to improve economy. But again, to have that translate into holding a faster pace in a race, it's not so much because, again, you're not working on, keeping your foot in contact with the ground for only a couple of tenths of a second. And that's an important thing to train.
So would you suggest doing shorter races, a lot of 5Ks that are around? Because I know we've got the Kook run this Sunday I'm doing, and there's I saw you did the Valentine's run last weekend, which I didn't have on my list. And there seems like, especially San Diego, living here for 2 years, it's like now post-COVID, there's a race every weekend. So race yourself into shape.
That is one strategy. I mean, certainly when you're working on the speed phase of your training, you should also match that with doing much shorter races because the races themselves act as speed work. So yes, if your goal is to run a faster marathon, then yes, I would say also run a lot of shorter races to help make yourself faster.
Or maybe walk in the 5K race. So sprint and then walk and sprint, walk.
Sure, you can use it as a workout.
Yeah. Well, not these days. When I started, I don't know, 25 years ago, it'd be $30 to register for a race. Now they're $110 to register for a 5K or 10K. They're so expensive. So I used to do that, but nowadays it's like, oh, am I going to make a good effort and push myself and feel good, or am I going to just jog it? I'm not going to pay the money to half-ass it.
I know when I was growing up, races were very cheap. And now, I think you're paying for all the things that, it's all the food after the race. It's, now everybody gets a medal. So whoever puts on the race, they have to pay for all these medals. So some of these races, they got to pay for thousands and thousands of medals. And so, people are paying for that. They think that they get a free medal, but then that's not free. That's why that's why it costs $50, $60 to race a 5K, because you're paying for the medal, you're paying for the food.
Yeah, I saw the medal for the San Diego St. Patrick's Day Dash, and it's like you did Ironman. Here, you just did a 5K race, and a lot of the people are probably drinking beer beforehand, but you get this big medal. Everyone's a winner.
That's right. Yeah. When I was growing up, you had to actually win the medal, and they had trophies, and now everyone's treated as a winner.
Yeah, the same with kids sports, I heard too. I don't have kids, but I heard everyone gets a ribbon. So I guess it's good sometimes. So where can people find you? You've got so many books. Is it best to go to your website, Amazon, bookstores?
Yeah, all my books are on Amazon. They're all on my website as well. And the website's easy to remember. It's just drjasonkarp.com. And yeah, I'm excited about this latest book, Endurance of Speed. I think it's going to be a game changer because it's something that, as I say in the book, people they often don't get faster not because of what they do, but because of what they don't do. And one of the things that they don't do is to get fast and do the fast speed work first before working on the endurance of speed.
Well, that's why it caught my eye, because I've been feeling that way myself for my own performance. Like my body knows how to go long and slow. I've done that for 25 years. Now it doesn't know how to go fast and push it and go 20 seconds, 30 seconds all out. I don't know how to go hard. So as a retired Ironman marathon 50K runner who can go forever, Forrest Gump, now it's like, all right, speed, I need to actually learn how to go fast and have some power and just push it. Because you don't know how to go hard, go to zone 5 or whatever you want to call it. It's like to get out of breath is a whole different thing than go slow and easy. Right. I can talk easy, but to go hard is hard.
Yeah. It's like, imagine when you rode your triathlon bike, if you only rode in one gear all the time. You got to think of that with running. You got to work all the gears when you run so that you have all the gears available to you when it's time to race.
True. Well, that's why I tell people you got to have a purpose to your run, because so many people do the same old run. I've said this for years. They do the same route, just run their 5 miles, and they just didn't have a rhyme or reason to what they're trying to get out of that run. So I think this is, a good book for people to read, to flip the pyramid around and train differently, because I think is if you look at the benefits of more of the short, intense interval training for aging female athletes and for male athletes, I think that really helps combine when we, add the endurance training, but it makes sense with all the other research we hear out there for aging and performance in life. So good idea. Good book.
Yeah.
Okay, so everyone go to Jason Karp, or is it drjasonkarp.com?
Yeah, drjasonkarp.com.
Okay. And you've got so many books. So start with this one. Is there kind of one people should read to get more information, or where to start?
Well, I think the endurance of speed is something if they want to improve their marathon and they're stuck. I think the endurance of speed is something that's going to get them unstuck. But if they want to also read a book that maybe was my favorite one to write, which talks more about the holistic side of running and how running helps you become a better person and deal with discomfort, then read the Inner Runner.
Ooh, that'd be a good one. Yeah. Well, you should come speak at the San Diego Tri Club. They have monthly meetings. I should get you to be a speaker. Mark Allen's speaking this month.
Yeah,
so reach out. Yeah. Well, thanks for your time today. Great information. So much more on your social media posts, and definitely look at your website and get those books, because I think we're endurance athletes looking to get faster, but we're all aging up. So any different way to train, as I say every time, what's the definition of insanity? Doing the same thing over and over again, expecting different results. So mixing it up and trying something new is probably what most people need to do.
I agree.
They're stuck. Good.
Thanks for listening to the Low Carb Athlete Podcast. If you have any questions, feedback, or topic suggestions, let us know on Facebook or at debbiepotts.net. You can help us to continue to grow by leaving a review on iTunes. Thanks again, and we'll see you next time.